Psychotechnologies
Technologies Live.
Live. Welcome to another episode of Psychotechnologies Live. We have with us a guest. Our guest name is Lady Red. Lady Red is a psychonaut who grew up loving Jesus, later became a Satanist, and now her current learning edge is the jhanas, where she currently runs a jhana Discord. If you would like to join the jhana Discord, message her on Twitter at Lady MC Scope, or you can probably do in the search bar for Lady Red. So, Lady Red, I want to ask you all about your jhanas, all about your discords. But first, you were teasing us earlier when we were talking about you apparently got a bunch of insights from a retreat on emptiness. So I want to hear all those while they're still fresh, and then we'll go to the other one later. So go for it. What is emptiness, and is that good?
Yeah, right in for it. What is emptiness? Well, yeah. So I just came out of the Michael Taft winter retreat. Michael Taft teaches at the Alembic. Really amazing person. And yeah, his whole retreat was about spaciousness, which is a synonym for emptiness that he thinks he likes more, which I also think I like it more. And I'd say sorry.
These things are hard.
The thing about emptiness, which is as far as I have been able to understand, I feel like I'm a little shy to even say that I now understand it. I feel like I'm probably going to keep on re-understanding it, but I learned from understanding literally nothing about it to the first thing, I think, which is I think it's a mental motion that you have that you should do that's not a thought. It's not exactly a thought. And this is the thing that makes it so hard to talk about, because everything we say is like, that's kind of calcified thoughts. And so it's really hard to point to a non-thought that also there's some physical thing to it. It's just like a thing your mind can do, a way it can do like a state change or
it's like a mental move versus like a focusing object or like a idea.
Yeah, it's something. Yeah, it's a mental move, and I also think it's really big in terms of like what exactly it is. So like, all right. So the thing I figured out was that if you have like I've heard descriptions of emptiness where people talk about everything that you see, everything that you perceive is happening in consciousness, right? Like you're in this little bubble, but everything that's happening, your body is inside your experience. Your experience is happening in your mind, but your mind's not contained to your little brain, right? There's no sense of that, like you're inside a container. You just kind of feel like you're in the world, but there's other things that aren't worldly who are in your experience. So you're not fully in the world, you're in consciousness. And the thing that I figured out I understood that for many years. The thing that popped was keeping that in awareness as opposed to keeping that in attention. Like I was studying a lot of TMI before this retreat, and their attention and awareness, very big topics in TMI where, you're trying to like raise and lower the two different levels of these things and in a balance and fighting subtle dullness and hindrances, etc. And I think that what I figured out is if you keep the idea that like everything you're perceiving isn't really the world, it's all just happening inside your mind. And instead of just thinking about that, like, for a moment and then moving on, if you kind of are able to keep that like as your background frame, then you suddenly step back from the ups and downs and earthquakes and tremors of like, just like, the roller coaster, and you kind of see the constructiveness of it, and you're like, just step back into a wider frame. Yeah. And the difference is like, I was able to do that with attention, but I think so. I was asking Michael Taft the difference between subtle dullness, which is being slightly sleepy or slightly kind of tuned out, and spaciousness, because Michael Taft was telling us spaciousness is everything exists in space, and you can there's no hard boundaries on something. You feel a feeling. If you feel that there's no boundaries around the feeling, then the feeling can be a lot bigger. It feels less urgent, which is a really awesome teaching. I think it gives me some equanimity just thinking about that. But I felt like my attention is on this feeling, and if I zoom out on it, then I just see it less. Like I see less details on it. And so he said, emptiness is spaciousness, is awareness. And that popped something for me. Like I had a big moment. I think I actually shouted oh. But not to show off. It just clicked that well, the thing is like, I think building up to this, like everything I've been reading about emptiness was just making me more and more confused. And so it's like this giant pile of dissonance. And then suddenly something changed, and it was like, oh, all of these fingers are pointing to the same moon. That finger moon thing never really made any sense to me before. And then I was like, oh, that's what you do. Yeah. So I've been now thinking about it more. It was quite a sea change in what it was like for me to meditate, like right after realizing this. And I the day or so after this, I was on this meditation retreat, I had a lot of effects. Like all my senses seemed much more vivid. Objects seemed kind of translucent. Like I was able to be aware of looking at anything about the possibility of its non-existence. And then stuff seemed more poignant, more meaningful for miraculously existing, when I could so easily see that it would just be there for a moment and then disappear from my qualia. And
can I ask, just how spacious are you right now?
Yeah, less so than on the retreat. It kind of
That's fair.
Yeah, I was able to hit that headspace pretty regularly for the first couple of days, but it's been about 2 weeks since that, and so I'm there less. I'm just kind of remembering what it was like. Yeah, but I think when I sit down, I'm able to find it again.
Like in proper meditation, sitting with silence and time and settling.
Yes. Yeah.
Can I reflect it back and see if we sort of are on the same page for that?
Sure.
Just the understanding your experience and insights. So it seems like you're talking spaciousness as in at first it starts the basic starting is just give yourself that space. So if you're watching a movie and you're inside the movie and the bad guy's gonna die and you're freaking out, it's calm down, you're watching a movie, I'm sitting here, this thing is happening there, and there's all of a sudden this space where you can kind of just take a breath and just be more and see that it's smaller. And so instead of you're doing that for a movie, you're doing that for your whole experience, your whole. It's
awareness. You can see everything other than the movie happening is also here, and right. I guess I was kind of imagining the way I've been thinking about it changed for a while, but I was thinking about you're in this little consciousness bubble of the stuff that's currently arising, but maybe everything that's ever arisen is somewhere in this vast infinite space, and you're just in a local area of it. Just get the sense that it's infinite. Although, yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting this sense of it's really cool, the way the perspective of the journeys that you're kind of going through, where it's on one hand there's way more stuff happening, and on the other hand there's way less stuff happening. It's less cluttered, even though there's more things. And then you're saying well, the difference is that now I have more space. I can exist within the whole universe, and so there's just so much room here. That all the things can go on all at once, and I don't really have to worry about that.
It kind of paradoxically removes a lot of the urgency, or So what I kind of was feeling at the time was that the attentional mechanism to focus on only one small area and kind of forget or black out the rest of consciousness is itself. I like, it's kind of like when this insight happened, a lot of different Buddhist terms I've read, and like I've read so many different books about Buddhism and generally found them all equally kind of confusing. But there's this thing that like called tanha, which is this like grasping motion or something. It's like, it's, you know, that the thing that causes suffering is this like weird, like, so yeah, there's a guy on Twitter, Nick Camarada, who talks about tanha as this grasping motion that like clenches onto something, doesn't let it go, and that's like ultimately the cause of suffering. And I realized that's the attention mechanism. I could see it like happening, and I could see that pushing your awareness was the antidote to it. Like if you could just keep on, like whenever you have your attention clamped on something, you could push to the awareness of the whole space and kind of release the narrow focus that it. And I'd say the effect on my meditation was, first off, tremendous amount of equanimity, tremendous amount of less doing. That's kind of a weird way to say it, but the TMI, like I was before up to when I was doing on this retreat, I was doing a lot of like shamatha, TMI, like very focused on the breath.
What's TMI?
The Mind Illuminated.
It's a book by John Yates Culadasa, who passed away about 2 years ago. The Mind Illuminated. He's got a very clear, very well presented layout of the meditative path and getting further and further and more clear on the path. I would say, he's got it.
I actually have that book at home too. I just
Yeah. It's sort of like if you need someone to give you like extremely exact instructions, then he really does. I think he's a little bit it's a little bit like such a formulated and concrete path that you can kind of get lost in the complexity of this like 10-stage system with all these different things you're doing at different stages.
And also, you're not quite at a stage. You're kind of at a like spread of stages. And if you're having a good day, you're probably higher up. And if you're having a bad, you're like, why am I subtle dullness again? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I'm like a 4 to 6, 4 to 7 kind of guy right now.
And so like, this is your sadhana, like this is your practice, like your daily practice.
Oh yeah. What's your current practice style? Are you doing like an hour a day or?
Yeah, I try and I wake up in the morning and do like a half hour, an hour sit in the morning. I also am going every week to Michael Taft's Alembic on Thursdays. I do that, which actually for a while I would go to it. And Michael Taft is kind of very different than the. So I guess the two texts I'm mostly working with are the Mind Illuminated and then the Jhana talks, because I was very focused on jhana. Going into the last 6 months and with the server and everything, was very focused on jhana. And then I would say like Michael Taft's not really focused on that. He's more of a spaciousness Dzogchen kind of guy. And I was going into this workshop, this retreat, honestly, thinking I'll just not listen to Michael Taft. I was just like, I already have this book and I've listened to 40 hours of Rob Burbea. Like I have a lot of shit I'm working with. I don't need another guy. And then I did listen to him and it kind of snapped. And the thing that it's so different. I realized that the point of all of the like shamatha, like calm your mind and get into this exact state, is to let insight happen. So it kind of worked exactly according to plan, even though I kind of thought of these things as two totally, that there's no way that these two practices should speak to each other. But and I was thinking about it later and I was like, oh wait, I did a ton of shamatha and then I figured out something. Oh, that's how it is. Yeah.
It's often talked about that the two separate paths being insight and concentration. Insight sees through things that would break concentration, so you can have better concentration, and concentration creates a stable, still, calm platform on which to do insight practice. So they kind of support each other. Concentration for better insight, insight for better concentration. So yeah. Also, like, if you can go deep into concentration and then do insight, you get this cool combination. So if you like travel to the highest jhana you can, do like 10 minutes of that, and then go for like self-inquiry, like what is the self, or like what is impermanence, you can start finding insights for yourself that kind of just appear in that stable stillness, which is pretty amazing technique.
Wow. I feel like I've only been doing this like 8 months, and I've kind of been voraciously consuming everything, like starting a book, reading the first 3 chapters, and then on to the next book. You know, I don't need that book anymore. I'm like kid in a candy shop, and like, so putting them all together into some system where they work together is like, the picture is slowly forming for me.
This is interesting. So in the Vipassana school, the Goenka retreats, they do 10-day silent sitting meditation. It's free by donation. In that school, they have a line that is like, dig a deep well. You know, pick one practice and stick to it. And this is completely not what I did, and it sounds like completely not what you did. I read like 100 books. I tried every practice. I was like, well, that's cool, but what about this? And I just kept going until I had such a body of practice that I was mixing and matching, and I was like changing on the fly. And I have deepened so quickly because I had such a variety of practice. Like, everything was possible. So I like advocate for this path of like muck around, find out. Right?
Yeah. Well, I kind of started thinking that none of this is real. Like that, I mean, like my prior, I was like, so I guess you said in the beginning that I was a Satanist. I was a Satanist for like 6 months in high school. And then I was a hardcore skeptical atheist for 15 years. And then I had like, I was at a meditation workshop. My friend's super into jhana, Stephen, he's starting the journey, like brain scan, effort. So he wanted to get some people into jhana so he could start eventually to collect data from them to train this brain scan machine. So I went to a jhana workshop from him, and I had this experience there of just tremendous, like overwhelming gratitude for the miracle of existence. Because his instructions were, we're going to take you through 4 or 5 meditation things that are all probably bog standard, but you've never heard of them, like mantras. So I was like, what mantra? That's crazy.
I haven't done it.
You don't know what mantras are?
No, I know what they are. I just haven't done them.
Yeah. Well, he took us through a couple, and the instructions were, if at any point you start to feel sense of pleasure in your body or something's happening that feels like if you focus on it, it will grow, or kind of, then just do that. Like, leave the class and, you know, mentally and follow that. And I started thinking about, like, I got this even like closed eye visuals of the tremendous like vortex of gratitude that I existed, and that I was in this real moment, and like, instead of nothing existing or me being dead, or like, you know, the absence of anything, that something actually was happening, and that it wasn't like mathematical or an idea, it was like hard and concrete. And sort of like a lot of my life was kind of dreaming, just in the flow, not realizing this like fundamental truth that I was alive. And I'm so lucky to be. And I just felt so much tremendous gratitude. And and I remember these visuals of like just gratitude just filling up. I spent the second half of that meditation trying to visualize larger and larger containers to try and fill up more and more gratitude. And eventually I was like, I was like filling up castle cisterns and filling up the ocean, and was trying to just like drink from a fire hose of it. And then so I was like, oh wait, so meditation's real. There's something in there that can happen to you, very different. Yeah, so that was pretty powerful. Actually, I don't think I've really ever got anything like that since. But it kind of sparked my curiosity too. I've been to the similar mindset a couple times, never like as like fire hosey as that. But yeah, it was incredible. First I thought that was a jhana, and then now I'm not sure. I'm a little bit not sure if any of the things I've encountered are the jhanas. Just figured out like 4 different ways to make yourself happy with your mind, and that none of them are jhanas. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think like there's something interesting. Like there is, I think all meditators kind of have this moment at some point where they're like, oh shit, meditation is real.
Or like, I mean, if you look at the 10 fetters, right? The one, I think it's the second fetter, is doubt. Like that, what I would describe this moment that you had is the falling away of doubt. Never again will you be like, I don't know if meditation does anything, right? Like from now on, you're like, there is no, like, you could have 100 people, you could have Michael Taft tell you that meditation isn't real, and you'd be like, that's cool, I'm still gonna meditate, right? That's the like, there's no doubt in my mind anymore that like meditation is a thing, and meditation is the thing that is mine that I want to do, right?
Yeah,
that's like the falling away of that fetter. That's like, I don't know if I'd call that necessarily a stream entry moment, but the like, when you have no doubt is like, it's a great moment.
Yeah. Huh. It was definitely like, I mean, I've done a bunch of different drugs, not like crazy amounts, but it was like probably more powerful than any of the drug experiences I've had. Maybe I've gotten close to that on LSD sometimes. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really chase that hard, but the idea that I could just find it in my mind, not on a substance, made it seem like so much more real, you know? Like that's just like what's going on. That's who I am. That's not like, you know, a distorted illusory state. And I don't know if that's just how it felt. It felt like both spiritually significant and like, I'd actually contrast this a lot with later experiences of jhana I had, where like, first off, so this had a lot of emotional context, and it had a lot of visuals and words, and it was like a real conceptual thing about the gratitude for existing. Whereas a lot like later jhanas that I found, because after this I just started pursuing jhana really hard, or not hard, a lot.
Right effort.
Right, because if you try too hard, you kind of squish them and then they don't really show up. But if you like incline towards for a long period of time, you're way more likely to find some jhanas.
Yeah, just start wandering around the field whistling, being like, jhanas, if there's anyone
over here,
any jhanas around. But
remember to give up a bunch of times while you're wondering, like, I give up, there's no jhana here, because sometimes it comes when you give up. That's like,
maybe that's what I need. Yeah. So just to finish my little sentence, the later jhana experience that I had, a lot of them felt extremely good, extremely pleasurable, but there wasn't, it's like almost like a pure senses thing, like no emotional content, no words, or like no, like there's no explanation for why it feels good. Like it just feels good to be alive, but it's not like I'm feeling gratitude for something.
It's more like phenomenological versus like insight heavy.
Yeah, it feels like, I don't know, MDMA maybe.
Well, you're also describing an individual experience. Like the jhanas are like, oh, I feel blissful, whereas gratitude is a relational, the way you've described it, gratitude for. So it's like there's me and the existence. Like I feel gratitude towards the existence. There's 2 entities in the experience.
Right. Yeah.
So that's like, there's more going on there. There's like I in the universe as opposed to like just joy. Like this is joyous.
Yeah. You know, it's so funny. Like as you say that, I'm realizing it's like kind of is built on a concept of yourself. Like, as I've been slowly examining self, I know that the ultimate destination in this meditation stuff, like I read flip to the back of the book, you're gonna find out that the self isn't there. And actually, it's kind of hard even to talk to people who aren't meditators, and they are really focused on the existence of their self. And I'm like, oh, I haven't thought like that in so long. Yeah, I don't know. I've started, inclining towards that, I guess.
There's
that's interesting.
For a bonus perspective that I think a lot of meditation doesn't have. You need a self and a strong self and a good self before you can realize that there is no self. If you like had half a self and would keep trying to dissolve it, you never really get the like, oh, I love being me moment to be like, I don't even exist. It's just a body and a chemistry doing its thing without the self. So that's a really powerful like conglomeration between why self is good and you need the self to get to know self really, really clearly.
That's interesting. I feel like my sense of myself is not that strong. And I actually feel like a lot of times when I've been in so I did the Waking Up app, and I also did Michael Taft did a bunch of the non-dual looking to see who's looking kind of instructions, and I never really figured out what that was because I didn't. It's like almost like they're trying to dissolve an idea I don't have. They're saying like, look to see who's looking, and I'm like, wow, it just is looking in there. There's
right, you're already at the end of this exercise. Well, it always is looking. I don't know why you was there meant to be like a little monkey that suddenly wasn't there? Like, no, you were there already.
I mean, I don't want to say like I'm already so wise that as I feel like I'm missing the point of the exercise, but I feel like if I had a really strong self, then I would say like, oh, this is like dissolving that, but it's not that strong. And I'm not really quite sure what to do. Do I make it stronger?
I tend to think of these things like some people they'll do like the book you have. It's very linear where it's like step by step, and a lot of times people are making these step by steps because that works for a lot of people. But like our mind's not like a path. It's like this like hypercube thing and super complex and interacting with itself and the universe and all that. And so like just like naturally as children when we're developing and into adults and all that, I think our mind, different people's minds structure themselves differently. And so there's going to be some things that people are like, oh, this is obvious and has been obvious to me my whole life, and it's weird that it's not obvious to everyone else. But this other thing that a lot of people find obvious, I don't find obvious. And so it's just everybody's journey is very unique, idiosyncratic.
Definitely, there's something when talking to people. Some people have extremely loud and caustic inner monologues.
Right, which makes it amazing if you can get it to shut the damn hell up.
Yeah, and I've never really had that. So I was also like, it's nice when it's quiet. It's a little quieter in there than when I started, but my inner monologue was like, always thinking of cool creative ideas, art projects. So I'd bring it back up when I want. But yeah.
My general advice to the meditator would be like, hey, if no self isn't a thing that you care about, just ignore it until later. And maybe you'll like care deeply about it and then investigate and then like do the thing. But if not, maybe it just doesn't matter for you. Same with like inner monologue. If you're happy with your inner monologue, by all means, like maybe quieten it down, maybe get it louder, get it like turn it into your inner champion, but also like, don't worry about it if it doesn't bother you. Like you're already winning if you've got that integration going.
Yeah. There's also like, there's so much to do in there. So like, not having this thing be like the most pressing is, it's fine. There's a lot more to do.
You feel the gratitude and just move on.
One thing I was doing like for a while, like when I was, because I started meditating, in the summer, and then I remember for a while I was like exploring my mind to try and figure out how like all the different things it could do simultaneously. I remember this one meditation I did where I set up a video to play on a loop and then also tried to have sound that was in sync to it, and then tried to also do movement at the same time and try and like figure out if I do two movements, are they objecting to each other? Like if I do two visualizations, like how many channels do I have on my little like switchboard, you know? Because I noticed like the audio processing channel like interferes with the thinking channel, but like I can listen to audio and also draw visually. So I'm trying to figure out like that's left brain, right brain, but then there's another thing that's controlling the body. And then so like, and then also like, is one of them me? And then the other one.
Do you want a spoiler, or you want to figure it out yourself?
I mean,
because we actually did this last episode. So.
As far as I could look into it, it's sort of like I feel like there's a GPT part of me that's like a prompter. And then there's like a mid-journey part of me, you know, it's that's like it generates images, also processes images. Then there's like a body understanding part. When the body understanding part there's also like a part that's like my will that I can push out, and I can like puppeteer the other ones. I can puppeteer the voice and make it say stuff, but it's like very distinctly different than the inner voice. Like the inner voice that kind of floats through your mind is like cloud, like almost like dreams. You know, they just kind of prompt, like self-prompting, and then you can stick your puppeteer hand and say like, you know, I can think to myself, I want to go to the gym. But it's not the same as a thought that you want to go to the gym. It's like clearly fake.
Right, like self-talk is not as strong as the intrusive voice version of self-talk.
Yeah.
It's like it just pops in, right? It's just like, oh, I want to go to the gym, as opposed to me going like, tell myself I want to go to the gym. I want to go to the gym. Why am I not convinced? Why did it work last time?
Right. It's like when you go back, if you ever like wake up from a dream and then go back in and then try and control and puppeteer the dream, and it's like none of these other characters are moving. You have to move everyone and make them say everything. It's like like a fake world. So yeah. So as far as I can tell, there's like a little core that has my will in it, and I haven't been able to look any deeper at the section the will is emanating from. But I suspect it's gonna be keep on breaking it down to further chunks or something. I don't know, Daniel. You can tell me what I'm gonna see. I kind of want to find.
I'm kind of enjoying you figuring this out, because you're like mapping it differently than we had Andreas on, and he maps it differently.
Andreas going to the QRI Institute.
Did you figure out what he's talking about?
Yeah, that was like the main focus of the episode. I was like, I'm like, I want you on. Your stuff is really cool, but I have no idea what you're saying, and so like constantly like breaking that down.
There's a sense of like, do I want to read or do I want to find it? You know what I mean? And I feel like for a while I was very find it, and now I'm kind of more going to read. I don't know.
I think they're both fun paths. Like I read Mastering the Core Teachings of the Buddha by Daniel Ingram, and he's like got a lot of phenomenology in there. He does mental noting, so an insight path more than a concentration path. And he's just like, this is what it's going to look like. And then you go off and do your own meditating, and you're like, it did kind of look like that. In some sense, like it didn't matter that I read it first. And like it still looked different to what he said, but it was kind of nice to have a map. It's like, I like maps, but also like cool to have a map. Had I read it after, I would have been excitedly thinking like, how did he know? How did he know what I would see?
Well, I always have a little suspicion, like, you know, if you hadn't read the map, would you have gone there and found it looked different?
It probably would have looked different. Like one of the territories is like kind of cycling through various emotional experience. And so I could have done a bunch more cycles before I read the map. But actually, upon reading the map, I also went, I know this one, I've done it before. It's like premeditation territory. I look back over various years of my life going like, oh yeah, I remember I did a loop like that. And like I did a bit of an emotional loop like that. So I'd already like seen it, but not in meditation. So I wasn't really mindful about what was going on. I was just riding the roller coaster. So it's got a bit of backwards and forwards when I read the map.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to reading Mastering the Core Teachings of the Buddha, but trying to dig slightly deeper wells than so I'm not starting it yet. I'm gonna finish a couple books.
Yeah, totally.
No, it's not get distracted. Yeah, it's so interesting. It's like kind of like the meta meditator or something. There's like doing the practices, but then there's like organizing the way you think about the practices or the way you orient towards the practices and doing that in a way that works for you.
Or even like it's inside one sit when you're like, okay, should I switch to another technique now? Or what's my goal? Am I doing spaciousness? Like I kind of feel like for a while I was just doing every technique I'd ever read simultaneously mixed together in a giant blender. Like what Taft said, maybe not do that. Maybe it's probably good advice.
I see benefits of doing that, and also I see you'll also probably get bored of it pretty quick because you'll be like, this doesn't do anything, it just creates like whatever.
Yeah, I think that's how I was treating noting. I was just sprinkling it in all the time, and I feel like there must be something to noting that you get from doing it like dedicatedly.
As a single sit, if you just note, you get a different thing than if you mix it with, or as a different option. I was saying earlier, the concentration and insight as different schools. If you build a concentration platform, like do some of the jhana type practice or follow the breath for a while until things seem pretty still, stable, and calm, and then do mental noting, you'll get insights from very still place. And the insights are like deeper insights because they come from such stillness. You're like, when you see something, you're like, oh yeah, that's how it is. As opposed to like, if I invite you to do insight right now, we're mid conversation, you're thinking about what you're doing tomorrow, like everything's a bit all over the place. So the insights don't really land.
Yeah. Oh man, that reminds me of when I was doing some jhana practices. I remember there's like a certain spot you get to. So like I was doing a jhana practice and I was looking through a window, and at a certain point, I just started laughing so hard because I realized the window is foggy. It's like a mirror. Like I'm looking through a distorted lens, And then I was like, but I'm looking through a distorted lens of my mind. Fucking animal, And I was just like, wait a minute, this is like you're in an altered state of mind because it's not such a good analogy, or whatever. And then I think I was watching water fall into this bucket. I have like a fountain outside, and there's like an inner section and an outer section. I was watching raindrops falling into it, and I was in this super deep jhana state. And I remember seeing some of the raindrops fall in the center. That's like qualia entering your attention, and some of them fall on the outside. That's like qualia entering your awareness. And then there's raindrops falling all in the rest of the whole patio, and that's like all of this stuff you're not even picking up. And I was like, wow, this water bucket has the secret of life in
it. Amazing. That's like the mid-journey part of your brain, like having the realizations almost.
Yeah. Oh man. But even thinking back to that, such a happy memory. Like I was just really warm and fuzzy on there. I think that's kind of what's going on with me and Jhana now. I feel like I'm like efforting it in a way where I want it, but not in a fun way. Like I'm not having fun. I just want the jhana already. And before, I remember like the feeling of it was super weaselly happiness, like happy but mischievous happy. Like I'm not supposed to be this happy right now, but I just am, and it's great.
Now we're like the nostalgia for like, oh, remember the good old days when it was like first getting into jhana and it just felt so good and it was easy.
Yeah, right. But now talking about it and remembering that, like how it was, I'm starting to feel a little bit. So maybe I'll do that. I'll just start remembering, like try and summon it up that way, because
that's a pretty good meditation technique. Sometimes what we do is we like store it in our memories, right? We like, do you remember a peak experience you had, right? And I'll be like, oh yeah, that time I got the award and the right. Like, okay, can we bring that memory to you right now, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to pick a peak experience?
You mean like remember jhana or something like that.
Like
Well,
if,
like
if
you're already remembering like the rain in the water, and then
Yeah.
like you already have that smile, you already have those memories. So like therapy does this just the opposite way, where they try to invoke negative memories and then
and get
like,
you to process
that-
them. Right.
Oh yeah.
right, like
Right.
the traumas, and then like this is like the opposite, where it's like, oh, remember that, you know, like the member berries, like remember back in the day when you had the realization of the raindrops and the and like you're smiling now, like you're already like
So,
Yeah.
right. I think the instructions I would give, let's go for the raindrops one, right? Can you bring that feeling right now to the feeling
Yeah.
of the thing?
I can remember it. I can remember the music and like just this like total sense of vibing. Like yeah, I really can. I'm remembering back to a couple different jhanas now, and it's like, oh man, what an incredible time they were.
Right. So we don't just want that in the past, we want that in the present, right? So we're like, we want to hold those memories, like get the feeling, get the vibe from those memories, and then drop the memories and keep the vibe, so that I can live in that awesome place.
Oh yeah. Ooh.
Ooh.
Vibe.
Yeah.
I remember a couple of the jhanas I went to early on were like a couple times when I was finding this, they were extremely laughing, extremely energetically. And there was actually at a jhana workshop I went to. So I went to the next one from Stephen. And I started doing Wim Hof breathing, and out of Wim Hof breathing, I got a ton of like mouth piti, and then I just started giggling, and then I laughed for an hour and a half, and I actually got kicked out of the workshop. Like, stop! This is a happiness workshop. Get out of here! You can't be giggling.
Too happy. Too happy. Like we're all here because we're miserable and we need to be happier, and you're just not showing us, and so you have to leave.
Yeah, right. Or you're disturbing everyone.
I just want to know, like, once you left, what did everyone else do? Did they go like, finally the happy guy left. Now we can all be miserable together.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I was gone, obviously. I think everyone just sat there quietly, not moving. That's kind of the and then I went and sat on my car. So I like my keys and everything was in the workshop area. But so I just went outside, and then I went and sat on the roof of my car because I couldn't get in, and then just felt so mischievous to be on the roof of my car and happy, and just like was rolling, laughing, and feeling like full waves of piti for like the rest of the workshop, like 90 minutes or something. It was awesome. And then after that, I kind of went to a extremely still, like infinitely kind of like you could just, the meditation's happening by itself, just totally still, quiet mind space.
You kind of hit equanimity, like you did all the activity and then you're like hit the equanimity stillness place after.
Yeah. It was awesome. All the discovering this stuff for the first time was all something I wanted to say, we're on this subject, is when I was reading descriptions of jhana, so there's the piti and the sukha, and sukha is happiness. I'm pretty familiar with that, but piti is like an embodied sense of pleasure. And reading descriptions of it, people are like, oh, that feeling of like a little bit of electrocution that passes through your body when something good happens? And I was, no idea. What the heck are you talking about? I've never felt that ever. Now I feel it many times a day. I feel it so regularly, but I'm pretty sure that wasn't like a embodied sensation I had like up until I started doing this. Specifically like waves of piti, like I get it now if I eat. If I eat something, especially something salty, and I really need to eat it, it's like not just good in my mouth. It's like a full body electricity jolt, and I did not feel that before.
Wow, that's like you got something special if you're like all day, all the time piti. I
would say not all
regularly. Yeah, regularly. I feel like these days, having matured out of jhana a bit, I don't get much if I try and go for like the first 4 jhanas. They're there, but they're not that exciting anymore. I do get pity though when I work with people and they like realize something and shift and learn something. And that's like, I just love hanging out with people and talking about meditation and growthy stuff because that ends up happening. That's one of my few spots where I get pity these days.
You get PT from social things happening.
Not any social things, very specifically when someone like changes their mind, I'd say. It's kind of hard to pin down, but it's also not something that can be pinned down, right? Because you can't keep changing your mind. It's got to be a real and genuine change. Otherwise, it's just, left or right, left. Like I can change from left to right, but nothing actually changed.
Yeah, that's fascinating that I was been so associating it with a sense of like physical pleasure or something like that.
Well, I get it in the body. Like I see it happening and I get it in my body, this pleasurable sensation experience of transformation.
Wow. That's awesome. That's beautiful.
I don't have an explanation. And like, hey, if I could grab it and bottle it and permanently be in the like as much of that as I wanted, I would. Although I do have plenty of it. Like there's also the like you described the after like sitting in equanimity, that peaceful place. I do want some of that too. I want the good thing and then the like the relaxed thing, and then the good thing and the relaxed thing in like a variety.
Once you're a kid in a candy shop, you're like, I think I'll take a little bit of the like, electric candy, and then I'll take a little bit of the chilling out. But this stuff makes you feel way better than candy does. Candy is a bit of a trap,
Yeah,
everybody still eats candy.
I've had experiences recently in Australia where in stone fruit season, so like big peaches and big plums, and I've like, it's really kind of sneaky. Like fruit is like, eat me, I'm delicious, and then you take a bite and you're like, there's like some sour thing, and there's some like weird texture in the skin of the thing, and there's some like, then it drips everywhere, and there's all these sneaky little like, maybe you shouldn't eat me because I'm annoying type sensations mixed in with the like delicious fruit flavor. I'm like, I don't know how I feel about fruit anymore.
You think that fruit is like trying to get you to discard it half? Take a couple bites, take it with you, and then drop it.
I have no like, I don't want to create strong epistemic rules about the true nature of the reality of fruit, but like about less than halfway through a piece of fruit, I'm like, this isn't as delicious as I thought it was going to be. And like, I think sharing a fruit with someone else is pretty good because they get like, about half the fruit and you get about half the fruit, and like you get like both of you get the good fruit and neither of you get the like, oh, the last bit was a bit sour. Like, have you ever picked like blackberries off a tree and you're like, you pick one and you're like, this is good, and you pick another, you're like, oh, that one was sour, you're like, I'm gonna pick another one so I can end on a good one, and then you have to like search for a good one to like end on a good one. Like there's a bit of that going on. Like I want the last bite to also be good of this fruit. Like the first bite I was hungry, so it was good. The last bite's a bit sour or a bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like, I wonder if you've changed or the fruit's changed, right? The last bite, probably if you bit that one.
Right. Well, that's kind of what I'm thinking, that my psyche has like, I've eaten some of the fruit and so I'm not as hungry anymore. And so the last bite is not as deliciousness as the first bite was.
Interesting. Yeah. Huh. It's
anyway,
kind of like,
brains are amazing. This is what we do to ourselves.
It's like so much is happening in the background that like when we're like, no, I'm an intellectual person who's making decisions, and it's like, yeah, but maybe all of your decisions are shaped by the biological framework of
yeah,
I don't know how we really have.
Yeah, it's like any decision we make is within our own context, and we like our context is created from this like awareness, concentration, like all the stuff we've been talking about. And that's why I love like the meditation, where it's like, it's not even necessarily like the decisions I'm making in the moment, but like the decisions I make when I sit on the cushion, like shapes my world when I'm not on it. And so it's like I'm already making decisions for my future self when I'm doing the meditation as well. And so like the meaning kind of the thing I like is the meaning kind of like dissipates across, so I don't have to get these like super intense stressful moments. I can kind of like, my whole life is just generally meaningful.
What do you mean the meaning dissipates across? Dissipates across time?
Yeah. So like if you're doing the you're doing like the jhanas, right? Like the decisions you make in the jhanas, like you're like, oh, I'm gonna chase it, I'm going to let it come to me, I'm going to sit and focus, I'm gonna go in by remembering, I'm gonna go in by feeling my body. Those things, like those moments that are happening, like you're like making decisions or things are happening, it affects like your physiology. And so like, for example, you're having the little zappies, I think you call them, like the
electric.
Yeah, I get the zappies sometimes, which I don't really like, but
They sound so cute.
I feel like maybe
when they're
Daniel's
small,
talking
they're
more
cute.
like
When they're big, they're not.
like Kundalini people describe it as like really quite painful electric lightning feelings, like passing through the body. But I don't have all that much experience with like real lightning stuff. But the little zappies, Daniel.
Yeah, so you're
say,
like, like that's affecting the way you live your life. Like you live your life differently now. Like I can't imagine that you're eating the same way now than before. Like when you eat and all of a sudden your whole body feels amazing.
Yeah.
Like you're doing something different probably.
There's so much, like I would say that it's sort of like since I've started, I started learning to meditate still within the year. So I remember from before and how much has changed in terms of my just being more aware of my body, like having more time that I'm mindful, even like not all the time, is like realized a lot of food made me feel really bad. Like I realized I was regularly overeating to the point that I felt sick, and like couldn't move, and that's crazy. I stopped doing that. I was also regularly coercing myself into doing stuff like social events that I didn't really feel like doing at all. I just felt like FOMO that I need to do this, even though I don't want to. And for who? I don't know. I stopped doing that. I've gone very non-coercive with myself, and I'm really liking it. I'm super introverted these days. Like I actually started meditating, and I was like, I didn't even leave my house for 40 days. I was just like, everything I need is in here, and and it was I leave it more now, but yeah, I think I just gone through a couple different phases where at one point I felt I was so extroverted, and I actually felt anytime I spent with myself was kind of like wasted. Like I could have been at a party or whatever. I was like even ashamed to eat by myself. This was pre-COVID. I think everyone got over this during COVID, hopefully. Because I was like ashamed to eat by myself and would feel like a failure.
Look at the lonely guy eating at the Thai place with no one with him. Like that's pretty it's a date, but there's no one else on the date with him. Shame.
Yeah, fucking sad. Yeah. So, and then I think COVID started me on a big turn inwards, and I've actually started really caring about my health a lot more, as well as starting meditating. I've also started running really regularly. I really like the way that makes me feel. I'm eating better. I stopped drinking entirely, and it's kind of like I don't know if meditating is causing the other things, or if the other things are causing, or if like something in my body was just like, all right, you're 32, time to get all your shit together, and then everything is from that. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what's causing what, but
or it's a third more complex thing.
Yeah, probably the meditation and the just like paying more attention to what's happening to me is.
Well, there's a proposal that one of the mechanisms of meditation is that it increases sensitivity. And from increased sensitivity, suddenly you're like, oh, I was overeating. I don't need that. Oh, I like the run. Oh, like I don't need to go out if I don't feel like going out and being social. Like that increased sensitivity causes awakening, and then awakening causes everything else. Like awakening to the nature of suffering. Like you're like, going out when I don't want to be social, that really sucks. And then there's like, well, that sucks. I'm just not going to do it. Like, wow.
Yeah. I guess there's many different kinds of awakening, I guess. I don't know. I'm always afraid to say like awakening, but yeah,
well, it's
definitely
like,
insights.
Meditation causes sensitivity. Sensitivity causes like discomfort. Discomfort causes realization, and realization has you change your life. Like, oh, I realize I don't want to go out. I realize I like running. I realize I was overeating. I can just not do that. And that's like, and then you're living a way more wonderful life.
Yeah. You're just paying so much more attention.
Which
I think
is
that was, I mean, when I look back to before I started, I was realizing I was kind of getting input to my mind to entertain myself, like literally every single waking moment. Like I would wake up, instantly start looking at my phone, put on the headphones, start listening to a podcast, like start my morning while continually consuming content, then go to work, and then like, you know, like not more than a minute where I can have only hear my own thoughts. Which when I say that, it sounds fucking like a crazy person, you know? Like it sounds like I'm terrified of running from something.
There was a study of like psychology study. People were asked to like sit still with their own thoughts for 15 minutes or give themselves a painful electric shock. Like what percentage, like something like 70% of people would rather give themselves a painful electric shock than sit with their own damn thoughts for the 15 minutes. And I think it was like they like shocked them and they were like, okay, how much is painful? And then you pick the like, ow, that hurts bit. And then they're like, okay, we're gonna leave you for 15 minutes with the button. Do you want to push the, like, you know it hurts because you picked it. You want to push the button or you want to sit with your thoughts? Up to you. And people push the button. Like
yeah, that's cool. I probably would push the button too, because how often do you get to do that, you know?
I do it like maybe once or like at the beginning or like, you know, play with it a bit because I'm like curious about these cool tech. But then I would like, no, I'm good to sit for 15 minutes.
Yeah, probably if it really hurts, you'd be like, okay, well, that's fine. Yeah.
That's us. That's humanity. This is where we're at. Where that's like, but yeah, becoming sensitive to things means that I like realize what I don't like, and then I start acting in my own best interest just a little better.
Yeah. So I think a lot of the initial benefits I got were just thinking about just having a little bit of space to think about stuff in my life and then fix the like obvious low-hanging fruit that I'd been just totally ignoring, or maybe ignoring on purpose. Yeah. It's also kind of like, I feel like there's like I have two modes of self-care. There's like a high energy and a low energy mode, and the low energy mode's really sluggish and like overeating or like just consuming a lot of like mindless content or whatever. It doesn't really rejuvenate me or move me anywhere, allow me to reflect on anything, but it just kind of like tunes me out. Also drinking. And then there's another one, like the meditation exercises, all these other things that are like, but to do those requires like a way higher energy. Like if you just feel like shit and you're tired, you can't really do those things. And you can kind of get stuck in either cycle. You get a cycle where you're feeling good and then you just keep on making more joy and equanimity and keep practicing, and like you're on this awesome upward cycle. Or you can be in the downward cycle where you're tired and you know, just like phoning it in every day. And then and I've actually kind of gone between the two a couple times. I think it's just a matter of figuring out correct, like realize this one's happening and make a giant leap, step up, you know, into the other one. That's probably like gonna increase my quality of life.
I would also take the hunch that maybe the low energy one is like the sleep demand, and like break out of that, actually sleep, and then wake up with new energy into the other one.
Oh yeah.
It might do something. Like if it's there, it might be doing something.
You mean like I just am tired, so I should just actually sleep?
There's a theory. There's a theory that like the low energy one is the like indications of sleep or indications of like, look,
you need a break. Like
And
Yeah.
you could
experience,
actually allowed to just sit there and do nothing for a while. And
which is
then
pretty good.
Right.
I had
you
experience
become-
recently that I was in a gathering and I was like, oh, I don't, something's up, someone's avoiding something. I don't like these people here. Like, what's going on? I'm sitting in the vibes or something. I'm like, oh, I can just leave. Like, that's good. I'm out. See ya, have fun, whatever. But while I was sitting there, I was like, scroll my phone, like put my phone down, scroll my phone, put my phone down. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, just don't like this one because I'm in the room with like people who aren't acknowledging their own experiences or something. Like, I'm gonna go.
Right.
I'm gonna go elsewhere
Yeah.
and do the other things.
That's so it's interesting that then you chose to leave because
It took
I
me
feel
ages. I
like-
should have left sooner, but yes, I chose to leave.
Yeah. probably should have left sooner. But I feel like the big difference for me, like I used to be very extroverted. Now I'm very introverted. And for me, one of the big differences is like how much your like prior like estimation of how much you're going to enjoy socializing with people. Like if you're an extrovert, you think you're really going to enjoy socializing with people. And if it's not happening, you're actually quite playful to figure out, you know, like change the topic, maybe talk to someone else at the party, like keep on searching to look for the thing that you know is there. And I think if now that I'm an introvert, kind of more because I figured out that I like spending time with myself a lot more than I did before. So kind of brought that one up. But I just remember like when I was more extroverted, it's like, yeah, that if I was in that party, I probably would have been searching to try and figure out how do I make it less fun. You know, maybe I like start leading a game or something. You know,
I find that like you're talking like you're going to a party and it's like not really hopping, and so you're like trying to make it happen, or like at least like find something good there. I find that like skill set kind of overlaps with introvertedness as well. Like sometimes I'm at home alone and it's like not happening and I'm not feeling it, and I'm like, okay, like how do I make this like I'm still at a party, I'm just the only one there and it sucks. Like how do I make this party good? And then it's like
fucking music.
Right, put on music, or you know, I'm big into like going for walks now. Like outside just like makes everything better.
Yeah. I work from home, and the whole like 16 to 24 hours in one space, it's like I don't know.
Yeah, like it's hard to have the best parties are like the best, let's say nights out, at least you're changing locations like every
Got
couple
some
hours.
adventure in your life, stepping stones. I got a question, Lady Red.
Mhm.
What advice do you have for, like, my sense is you moved from more rationality into weird meditative spaces. What advice do you have to the rationalists who are like maybe skeptical of meditation, or like they're like, you know, Scott made this post, jhanas are real, and a bunch of comments were like, no, they're not. Like, what advice do you have for these people who aren't where you are, and you seem to be having a wonderful time living a great life? What advice do you have for them to like, hey, join me over here or something?
Great question. It's tough because I had like, I mean, I had that big, you know, meditation is real, here's the proof in the pudding moment. And I've been pulling on that thread, finding out more and more stuff is real. Like, but it's kind of only when you observe it in your own mind that you know, that you really believe it. And as far as I can tell. So I would say like maybe the two resources that to start meditating in and see if you find something. I feel like the Sam Harris Waking Up app, I think that the introductory course is pretty good. And of all the different apps, I feel like that one's particularly, like Sam Harris is definitely of the opinion that some people think that meditation is a calming thing breath exercise you can do to relax. Other people think this is the secret to the universe. And it's not actually a particularly calming breath exercise. Anyway, Sam Harris is clearly in the second category, the one with bigger ambitions, but also is very accessible, and he walks you through it. So there's that one, and then TMI I think is a good starting guide. I think TMI has really got the rationalist number because it's extremely in depth and it's got a lot of stages, and there's a lot of instructions. Like what you want is like not like poetry. You want like, you know, more of
Step by step.
Yeah, someone who's like really going to explain how your mind works and give you detailed diagrams of all the different parts of your submind and stuff like this. Like, look at all the different kinds of, those are like 6 stages of jhana and piti you can feel. I mean, I kind of think this is bullshit from, like, this is too structured, but I feel like it would be good for rationalists. Yeah. Yeah. And then the third exercise is actually one. So this is an exercise that I really, really, really like when I'm doing jhana. And I actually tend to do it as my springboard practice. So I don't know, for rationalists, this if you're not familiar with jhana, I guess I've probably been talking about this whole time. I should have defined it, but yeah, the state where you get more and more, you can focus on your own pleasure and become aware of your existence and aware of your pleasure in your body. And if you just have like kind of a calm mind that can just focus on it, it can grow, and you can just kind of dwell in this, and it can actually spread over your whole body. It's incredible. But in order to do that, you have to kind of get the fire started. It's like a chain reaction. So there's like these springboard practices you can do that will kind of help you get a sense of happiness. We talked about finding it in the memory. You can also do something like metta, which is, just basically wishing well to people in your life, or people you know, just like wishing them to prosper. But the one that I really like is yours, Elliot. It's called Jhana Lite on the breath. And there's a Google Doc. Actually, I've been doing this for months and not realizing you were the author. So
It's me. I wrote a random thing in my spare time, and then it was useful to people. I'm so excited that they even care.
No, very useful for people. And I think it's very useful for me in particular because I have an extreme oral fixation. So I have a anyway, everyone knows what oral fixation means. But
if you want to expand on it, make it a little spicy for our audience, you can.
Yeah,
or we can just move on.
I just find mouth sensations very pleasurable. For my whole life, it's manifested in many ways. But there's a particular way so the Jhana Lite on the breath is saying there's 4 phases of the breath: the beginning of the in-breath, the tail of the in-breath, the beginning of the out-breath, and the tail of the out-breath. And that each of these has a very subtle emotional characteristic on them. The beginning of the in-breath, the cracking open is like, joy, like the life is being basically born, and new things are possible. It's basically like the spring. And then
Can you feel it right now as you say that? Can you like tune in?
If I go like,
oh wow,
and tune into it, it's like a little bit of electricity in my mouth. And then the tail half of it is happiness, the sukha. It's like the summer, and then the beginning of the out breath is like contentment. It's kind of, and then the final one is equanimity on the end of the out breath, which is kind of like the winter. I actually don't think you did the seasons, but it just seemed to be.
The seasons feel nice when you say it. Yeah. It feels natural.
So, but the focusing on the exact sensation of like the joy and the pleasure of breathing into your mouth, especially hitting my tongue, it's like I can really get a sense of like embodied, like, boy, it's so nice to be breathing. And so I kind of like sip the air like a little cocktail straw, and like, just like, it's great. So I don't know. That kind of is my advice. Start breathing the air like a cocktail. And well, what do you think of that?
Well, I think some of the advice is like, hey, you enjoying yourself? Did you know you could be enjoying yourself like right now? Like,
And
Right.
you can enjoy like stupid things that like are just like awkward or embarrassing or just things that you do every day. And like I feel like a lot of times we have to like pretend like, no, I have a sophisticated enjoyment palette, but like really like just if you can just enjoy breathing or living, like that's amazing. Like,
Right. Right. You can just be happy right now.
yeah.
All the time people use this construction. I've actually picked up on it in language a lot. People will be like, oh, I can't wait till I finish moving and I'm gonna feel so good. And I have like started to just instantly reverse that and say, what if you just felt good? And then later on finish moving or whatever.
Yeah. Like otherwise you're just like you're in a prison of your own, like you're in a prison and you're the guard. And they're just like, oh, you're not allowed to be happy unless like certain criteria. Right.
You're limiting your own happiness. And all this time there's this feeling of like wearing a coat, like wearing a backpack, like I'm making it through this moment so that later I feel good. But a lot of the times I'm feeling this and the moment is totally justified to be happy now. There's, like it would be totally like appropriate, maybe a little bit weaselly, like mischievous, like maybe I'm not supposed to be happy, but you could be. And actually not being supposed to is kind of getting away with something. And
then you can be happy that you're getting away with something. I think that's the kind of thing you like. Like to sip the air, get away with sipping the air. Like you pulled this heist, like, oh, I
Lady Red here being like, you can just steal the ducks from the park, you can just sip the air. Like,
yeah.
Like you don't need to like go to the Bahamas and enjoy the beach. You're like, I'm already there. Like I'm already enjoying life. I'm already living my fullest, and like I'm in the city. So like, fuck you. I can do this anyway.
Fuck it. This is it. Like this is it. So fuck it. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. And I bet that makes you like more pleasant to be around as well, and like helps you like feel better about yourself. And so you're like, you're able to do the things that you think are important.
Yeah. To make me nicer to be around. I think being in a good mood definitely does. It's been an interesting dynamic in my relationship right now. Get personal, but my partner's going through some depression. And I'm going through basically one of the happiest times in my entire life. So there's just a lot of things. Yeah, the contrast is interesting. There's a lot of things where like, very glass half full, glass half empty, exact same glass that we're looking at, yeah. So I think it makes me happier to be happy. I'm really glad I'm able to do it. I think it's yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and you gotta like be like a beacon of hope for your partner.
Yeah. She's feeling better and better over time. So and I've started to share some of the meditation stuff with her, and it's so anyway, sorry, but
that's amazing. No, that's amazing. Like that you're like going through this journey and you're like having all these like gifts, and now you're just like naturally or intentionally sharing it with those around you. And like like I've been through depression, and like that's really bad for the person going through it, but it could also like negatively impact the people around them as well. And that you're doing like, I guess, the kind of the opposite of that, and like bringing that space up.
It is a little bit like, speaking about sharing with other people, I was trying to tell a couple of my friends, like I have a weekly COVID bubble who, still
nice.
I guess COVID's still going on, whatever. So seeing my weekly group of friends, and I started to tell them, I tried to tell them about this insight I had, and then realized they don't know almost anything about meditation. I amazingly kept it to myself. And I started telling them about, jhana and etc. And it was like, there's so much jargon that I learned.
Yeah.
Like, I was like saying, like, the thing I said, like spring, summer, the happiness and tranquility. I said to someone about that, it's a very similar thing. And they said, oh, happiness and tranquility, that's like the same thing. And I was like,
how dare you?
What? You
How
don't even know.
dare you?
You don't know anything about being happy.
Oh man, I had a conversation in the last 6 months that I was like chatting to someone about jhana, and I was like, have you tried jhana? He's like, oh, jhanas are like for retreats and for monks, and I was like, have you tried jhana? He was like, nah. I'm like, oh no. Like for me, the Jhana Lite, it's like that far away, right? You sip on some air, it's sort of maneuver, and you
just
have
remember to breathe.
right. And this person was like, no, I can't. No. I was like, this is like, I feel deep and great compassion for your like not being able to see that the jhanas are right here.
Right there.
Right there.
Just look and it's just tune into it. And I kind of, like there's a lot of making intentional distance from your goal, and maybe to make the path feel longer,
I guess like to see it, like for me, it's like, oh, I have to walk this path and it's hard. So I need to like see it like all laid out in front of me, versus like when I finally realized like, actually, like I'm just experiencing stuff all the time. So like, I don't need to create, I'm only creating that distance if I need to like see it or study it for some way. But if I want to experience it, like don't create the distance, just let it happen.
I feel like this might be the difference between like walking up a mountain, doing like one step at a time as a goal, and like seeing the whole mountain in front of you and like trudging up the mountain while seeing the whole mountain every step. Like there's some good in like seeing the whole mountain and feeling like every step has been a step up the whole mountain, and there's some other good in just taking a step and seeing a step as like good, and then finding yourself at the top at one point and going like, I guess I got here.
I would say realizing that like I have the rest of my life to be meditating is because I think when I started, I was like, this is all new. I need to get it all in my mind as quickly as possible. I read 2 chapters of a book, on to the next book. Can't afford to keep reading that book. So, but I've met many people who have been meditating for years and years and years, and I think just gonna slow down. There's a lot to explore, but I also have a lot of time.
Yeah.
I also get the sense that certain experiences, like thoughts, are really fast. Like in between not having a thought and having the thought, it like happens. Right? It's just lightning bolts itself in. It's not even lightning. It's faster than that. It's like the thought is here. Having an emotion has a bit more of a slowness to it. Like I want all of my experience to kind of happen at the speed of like instantaneous thought, instantaneous awareness. But some of those experiences do happen slower. And as I slow down, I let those emotions travel at the speed of emotions. Like, what's it like to be angry? Oh, there's some heat, and then it moves, and it's like, I hate you, and then it's like a couple more of those, and then I'm like, oh, I feel better. But it took a bit to go through all of them. And so being able to slow down starts to unravel the deeper knots.
Interesting. So you want to move at the speed of emotions when working with emotions.
Well, right. When working with emotions. Other times, by all means, don't stop in the middle of the road just because you want to have a thought. Like appropriateness of speed, but also some of our experience moves slower than others. And moments, maybe some trauma is caused by having to move faster than our experience mentally. Like we disconnect from experience into a mental version of the experience because we're trying to like rush through it.
Oh, how quickly something becomes its own myth, or I feel like that about my insight experience that I was telling you guys. Like it became a personal myth about this thing that happened to me. Like, the next day it was already a myth. And I was like trying to
story
back to the reality of it, but it's like getting quickly more and more layers of mythification is happening around this. So, and I don't know, like I'm hoping I'm going to go on retreat again. I'm hoping to find it fresh, and maybe it'll look different.
I would say something like, don't expect to go backwards and find the thing. You'll find new things,
Yeah.
new freshnesses, but don't expect to like do the last one again, because that'll just leave you in a trap of never getting there. You know, time is a forwards arrow. We don't go backwards. So there's some like need to grieve and be sad about the fact that, oh, well, that one's in the past now. And then some like optimism of like, maybe I'll find something like it again in the future. Like those
Right.
orientation skill, like right mind sort of skills.
Or maybe try and remember like what it was and summon it into the present.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then it's no longer in the past, it's actually here.
Yeah. The thing you said about giving stuff the time, like working on the time scale of emotions, reminds me of another practice I'm doing. I'm doing everything at once. Gendlin's focusing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that's got a lot of like.
What's that? Gendlin's focusing.
Eugene Gendlin's focusing. He was a therapist. Go ahead, explain.
Yeah. It's definitely a focusing, a therapy school, psychotechnology, and it's about how to ask your body questions, and get answers from like your body that are kind of these like cohesive, take the whole problem at once as a felt sense, as opposed to like analytical, like inner monologue. So
Supposed to like breaking it down, you're looking at like the whole,
the vibes.
Almost.
Yeah. And it's kind of trying to teach you how to ask your body questions as opposed to asking your mind questions, and work with the body feeling different than and the mental narratives. And the thing that reminded me of it was that after every time you talk to the body, you have to wait 30 seconds. He actually says, take out your watch and count off 30 seconds. That's how long you have to wait, because the body answer like emerges slowly. And if you are too impatient or take the first thing, which is the mind gets back to you, you will miss what your body's trying to tell you. And I've been trying this technique. It's a tough one. It's tough. It's subtle. I think what the body says to you is subtle. Often I get, I'm like, oh, a slight pinch in my lower, like on my organ down here, slightly constricted. What does that mean? Does that mean I'm happy or sad? Like I feel like I have to learn a new language, and I can't really even tell if I'm doing it right. So, but it seems useful.
The language of the somatic experience, by the way. We're underneath emotions, we're moved into the somatics. So if you're looking for a keyword, somatics.
Yes.
I kind of want to get you to try a thing as well.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. So there's a practice called somatic descent by a guy named Reggie Ray. He's a long time meditator. And he just like, I'm going to give you just like the first part of the practice. And that is like, try just say hello to your body. Be like, hi. Like address your body and be like, hey, how's it going? And just see what it feels and see if it receives that hello. And like, if it says hello back, I don't know.
Yeah. I guess I could tell you what I felt.
Yeah, sure.
Or should I wait?
Go for it.
Sort of like took my hello and went, and I felt like a little wave of energy go up down my body and out my legs and like collect down there. Not sure what to do with that.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing I'm encountering and focusing all the time, being like, okay, so given that, going down towards the legs, what do I do?
Right. And there's more to somatic descent, and like if you want to ask questions, but that first, like, what we do is we make the body other, and then we go like, I'm gonna send it hello. And you send it the hello, and it goes like, like there's some aliveness that we hit the body. It's like I said to Daniel, hello, and he like receives the hello and decides whether he should reply. That's kind of what we're doing to our own body. And sometimes it's like, what about the thing we forgot about? And other times it's like, hey.
Oh, the body can be in very different moods. You might get very different answers.
Well, you might be carrying stuff in the body that you're not in tune with. It might be like, why are we saying hello? What about all the things we're worrying about right now?
Fascinating.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt the hello was like a relaxation, you know, like it was good right now. But gosh, this somatic stuff, and there's like somatic stuff, and there's like imaginal stuff. I feel like there's a lot of things to explore.
Lots of psychotech.
A lot of psychotech. Frankly, very overwhelmed.
Right, but I would say like if you follow the rally flag of like having fun with it, and I am like in general, was that a positive valence or a negative valence? You know, if it when you said hello to the body, was it like no, or was it like yeah? Like that's the the guiding flag. Like that was pretty good. Okay.
It was pleasant, but because maybe I'm a very conceptual person, getting back an answer that was a movement and not I was
not a language.
Yeah,
or it wasn't in English.
Yeah, it wasn't in what it was in body. It was like
yeah. I think that's like a lot of part of it is like learning that language, because like the body's going to speak in its language and your mind's going to speak in its language, and your words are going to speak in their language, and like you're an artist, so like you already speak like the visual language, or at least understand it and able to interact there. So it's like another, like you've already done something that is nonverbal, so like to learn the body is like new, but it's not new.
That's interesting to think about the connection to visual artist, because I would say as another kind of psychotech, learning how to paint really changes your life experience. Like learning how to paint, like actually trying hard to capture, like really changes your relationship to sight and everything you see. Like I remember when I had before this, you know, I kind of do a lot of faces, so I really try hard learning how to draw, learning how to paint, and it was like I felt like my visual sense doubled in acuity. Like every stuff I was seeing, I was like 3D modeling things as I was seeing them, and everything was way more 3D and vivid. I saw way more colors, a lot more detail. A little bit faded now since I haven't been doing visual art as intensely, but that's like definitely like a way of unlocking a new part of your mind. That's really, really cool.
Wow. I'm like, I gotta start painting stuff. Jeez.
Yeah, that was a very inspirational.
That's like inspiring. I'm like, all right, guess I gotta buy some paint.
In particular, the thing I think that I really recommend everyone to do is going to life drawing classes, because life drawing classes with a live nude human body, it's first off, it's total flow. You're in the flow. You have only a very short time to do it, and you 5, 10, 15-minute sits, and you just try and do it as good as you can. You just keep on like executing. You don't get into a judgmental space really at all. It's awesome for that. It's also like you never really get to look at people in our society. It's like it's rude to stare, so you never really get to examine like a living human body like with that level of like not covetousness, but just like appreciating, understanding and appreciating it. And it's liberating. And I mean, there's been many life drawing classes where I've just been crying, you know, or like on the edge of tears and awe at just beholding the beauty of the human form. And also like turning on that part of your brain that's like understanding the shadows and visually tuning into it. It's incredible. So God, I gotta